Guess I'm on. Pom pom pom. Welcome to another edition to, I guess, what we were going to say. I guess I wasn't prepared, you know. It's just another storytelling episode. I mentioned I was going to talk about the Promised Land. I wanted to do some reading from the book of Genesis where God speaks to Moses. And, again, you hear later on in the book of, I guess it's Numbers, where you hear God speaking to Abraham. And the idea is that, you're supposed to wake up. And they wanted you to leave your father's country. Your kindred is another way of saying that, and that is that, he's really wanting you to slip out of your present self so he can take you to a place. He wants to show you a promised land. He promises that, if you can find this place, if you go and search for it on your own, he promises to give it to you, the whole thing, kit and caboodle. And of course, this read as if it was real, in a literal sense, makes him out to be a real person, and that he had this woman named Sarah. And when they were in their 90s, they went through some intervention with God. This is when it happened, when they were 90 years old. Okay, it wasn't just when he was a child and stuff like that. And he was given this as Abram. So once Abram decided and got over on this other side, he became Abraham. No different than his wife Sarai becoming Sarah once, because they're the same person. We have Jacob having a name change, and he becomes Israel. And of course, all of these are coming to the same place. Israel is a state of mind. It's also paradise. It's the promised land. It's Canaan. It is the land of milk and honey. It's the right side of your brain. And once you get there, he gives it to you. He gives you that, and he gives you the other side too. Well, he gets that side. You are all these things in one. And this is what becomes. Then you become this monotheist person who believes in one God. Until then, you're believing in a part of one, the bad part. But that's basically it. There's the promised land was given to you, and the multitudes are you. When they go about, it's they're talking about getting the sons of all of these tribes together, and there's one head on the between all of these 12 tribes. And if you were to understand that the 12 tribes of Israel were representing the 12 signs of the zodiac, all right, then you would find that these things represented our body, from Aries to Taurus, Gemini, our arms, all the way down to Pisces, the 2 feet. But this is how it works. This is the brethren. This is the body. This is number 5. All right. And in order to go from one way of thinking to another, then you have to travel. And that's what these guys are out to travel. They're all traveling. It says, hey, I'm going to take you to this one place, So in one story, like with Moses, what have we come? You've brought us into this land only to slaughter us, And they talked about, so they sent Joshua, right? Joshua, and who else was going out there? Some dog. His name means dog, which is just so appropriate because the dog is the hunter in most of these stories. Even whenever they go out hunting, it's always the dog. It's the dog. I was trying to do this without notes, because it's so much easier sometimes without having to read something. Caleb. All right. Well, along with them, this whole list, it starts off, it's number, I think it'd be chapter 13. So that means four. So it's talking about the worlds and the state of mind. And in this particular part of the story, they're all saying the son of this one and the son of that one. And what they're talking about is their firstborn from each one of those is going on this trip from the left side over to the right side. And that's where they go up there. And then on the sixth ladder, this is where they see these people over on the other side. And they call them like Anaks. All right, the son of Anak. Let me make sure I make that right. Okay. Listen, when they were trying to get this guy Abram to come out of the land of the Chaldees, that's where his mother and father were abiding in. If you go and look up what that means, the of Chaldees, it means as demons or as robbers. That's they're talking about robbers. They're always talking about God can't take these people that are stealing, these thieves, these robbers. Now the robbers are the ones that take away the spiritual side of you. This is religion and stuff like that. This is the man side of this equation. All right. So like in the story, they're talking about, wow, they found these really cool things. There was these people. There's this people from, we're going to find out what their name was. Anak. The children of Anak. A-N-A-K. A-N-A-K. This is collar or ornament. All right, jewelry. Now, they're not really guessing at this, but the idea when they tear this name up, it means long-necked people. And they're putting these up against what we would consider giants. Okay, now giants, and this is on God's side now. This is what the men are saying. These guys stand up, like Caleb says, hey, let's go and we can take them now. Let's go, but the men came up and said, hey, we saw this, we saw that, and this whole idea was trying to scare it, but they even call it, this was an evil thought was brought on. I mentioned this yesterday in our writings that shows up in the next chapter that God calls these guys out. Who are these people? Who are these of the Jew? Who of you guys? What, the congregation is your body. So he says, how long do I have to deal with this wicked congregation? How long? And of course, he set it all up anyways, but this is that test. It's really strange how it always works. But Anak really just meant long-necked, and if they said jewelry, you just have to understand that the neck is the bridge between the higher and the lower. What is the skin and what is the higher thing? So this is the whole idea. Being a grasshopper has there's a lot of interest in dealing with grasshoppers. And you could look them up too. Something spiritual about the grasshopper is this idea that they are connected by the ground. And in this particular pause, they're watching, they're listening, and there's like a synchronistic movement and then all of a sudden they're flying. And, they stay by the side and during the nighttime or something like that. But when the sun comes up in the morning, the sun charges them up. It's sort of like as soon as the sun comes in, zzz, bam, and then no one knows from which they go or where they come. So it's this energy of being earthbound for whatever reason, to get that balance and that idea that after that it's, you're on your way to some kind of a dream. And so, this is a beautiful scene. And it's not like they're looking at us as being small. If you also were to Google the Bible and grasshopper, you would find that they're talking about something as many. Be like locusts. Except locusts like to eat the green. All right, this idea of taking away something so that you can't see, it's actually a good idea. Eat all of that, which is the green. But the grasshopper is this. It's this idea of being able to take flight. You know, but having 2 feet on the ground in this idea, and it's just interest. There's a beautiful story within those. And you've noticed that many times, that there's a little cricket or some kind of a little bug. We're all being made up to be like some kind of animal most all the time in these things. Oh, but anyway, so anything to do with the neck. The neck is that bridge. That's the part of the what you would call what we would call the rainbow. It would still represent the energies that bring that this is the separating part. This is where I tell people to learn how to kill themselves. It's catch you about right there, you know. So, anyways, what do we get out of this with Abram? You know, when he got Abraham, he got it. That's it. That's the promised land. They don't need to be going through all this shit that they're doing today. This is some kind of a weird evil pact that's come about where someone at the end of all these things has to come out as the Jews being the boss of everything, like no matter what. And this is a group that doesn't believe in anything else. They call everything else pagan and low conscious and shit like that. And this is the lowest conscious paganist shit you could possibly imagine. Uh, because of the way they read it. All right. And to think that all you have to do is find this place inside of you and bring it to life. And they call that, demonic and new age, and that's all you have to do, and that's all you've had to do for eons and eons and eons. Listen, I had a little chat with friends tonight at dinner, not with all of them, just with one of them, and they're pretty well-to-do friends. But both of them, have found that one of them can't sleep, and the other one has found by meditating, he seems to be able to, handle it. And she can't seem to be able to cut her mind off. I think this is the idea. She can't shut her mind off. But I said, you're just shutting your mind off. You don't know why you're shutting your mind off. But they live in a pretty good and blissful little world. And I was thinking to myself, should I say that, hey, I don't think that you guys can afford heaven. I think that, it's that you're above it, that you have to be on the lower side of this thing. You have to go through hell first, before you can get to heaven. And so I just wasn't ready to give that kind of advice. But anyways, the husband would bring in to say, well, I think all that Bible shit's all garbage and this and that, And I said, well, what if I told you that I discovered, that there's some kind of or what if I told you if it was discovered? I think I did say but that it would wind up being mechanical. That and I went through the idea that those old. Remember when we were in school, and there was passed around, a sheet of paper that had I, and then there you had to fill in, someone's name, do, la la la, and then put a noun in, and then put an adjective, and then keep going through and fill in all the blanks, and then it makes this story. Generally it's supposed to be funny, but and that you're just having fun, but it shows it was a mechanical way of setting something up, and that's how the Bible is. And I said, and that takes it out of the hands of those people that are just writing and thinking and talking and speaking and remembering things, that of things that happened 100 years ago, 200 years ago, and whether or not their words match what the Red Dead Sea Scrolls say and stuff like that. I said, they're exact. It's the same story. And that whether it was 10,000 years, 2,000 years, or 4,000 years, all of these different time zones when this information was given down to us or handed down, wherever, however, the code in this information was intact. Intact. I mean, right down to it's absolutely beautiful. It's seamless. It's about God. So it should be pretty smart. All right. I have been to the mountaintop. The story that, if he got to the mountaintop, he wouldn't have anything to see. There wasn't anything there. There is a mountaintop. When you get to this place, this wisdom could be helping his people to get them out of this. But this idea of the blacks being slaves and to the white man, and then the Bible even telling them, hey, the Bible, God gives these white people or whoever is above you the right to control and own you. But at the same time, it's that kind of mentality that's supposed to, when you've had enough, brings you to this brink of a rapture that brings you to the Lord. So the very same words that we learn in the Bible that scare the hell out of us and bring us down low, bring us low. Those of us that really love God, those people that have really love Him, the cry for Him. And I have cried for this guy. I have looked for Him. It's been a part of me since I was a child. And so, it's not something I take lightly. My friends don't believe in all this shit, so I keep it to myself. It doesn't mean I don't have to still be friends with people who don't believe stuff. But now I have gone past a certain belief to now they know the truth. And the truth backs up, because you say, how do you mean? It's still my perspective on it, that it's, my personal opinion. And I told him it's not mine. It's a discovery. When you discover something, and then I can point it out. And I've got, 2-3 years worth of pointing it out here. And that anybody can do it and find it out on their own. It's a discovery. It's not an opinion. So it's not mine. And it's been there. It just was waiting for someone to see it. And so, I learned how to read this Bible and did what it told me to do. And so I'm able to read it clearer, in a lot of ways. But then I already know a lot of the inside now. So, if you think you're going to get a different lesson every time I open my mouth or read a different scripture in this Bible, it's not. It's all going to be pointing to the same thing. It keeps telling you to come home. Just all of these stories are about what happens on your inside. I'm Caleb. He's a dog, for Christ's sakes, He's the hunter. He's the one they sent out to go and search the land, go search the land. It's just, you guys, what happened at tonight's dinner was that there was 3 or 4 of us, but 3. One really got every bit of it and was asked by the male, says, do you understand what he said? Do you actually understand what he is saying? And so, and I said, this is perfect. I said, I said, so apropos, and I said, you don't know how beautiful it is. And I said, don't think that this is wrong. The idea that whatever I'm saying, it makes absolutely no sense to you. And I went like this. I went, wah, 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 wah. He says, yeah. I said, that is so beautiful. I said, you raise the hairs on my arm and tell me, I'm getting emotional. I said, this is so beautiful. Because it's the truth right there in front of me. His wife was half and half, but I think that because he makes fun of it, I think that she's kind of, hey, you don't believe any of that shit, do you? But her sister, the one next to me, she understood. She was understanding it. She knows a lot about the Bible. So I didn't tell her that she wasn't going to make it. I told her that, the story in the Bible was that, anyone can do it and everyone can. It's usually born out of suck, and she's certainly unhappy with not being able to sleep. It's bothering her. And those particular things, it's like wrestling. So this is Jacob's ladder. He's wrestling with himself, and he's wrestling with himself, and he's wrestling with it's an angel he's wrestling, this other thing that he's wrestling with. And then, it grabs him on his thigh and stuff like that. He lays down. The whole idea of this wrestling, this is the fight between, David and Goliath. This is the fight, the wrestle between the higher and the lower conscious. Who's going to battle? Who's going to win this? And of course, in the end of both of them, he winds up seeing God face to face. Jacob climbing, seeing a ladder, and seeing God at the top of this place. And of course, when they on the other side, we wind up with David actually chopping off the head of his adversary, which is the idea of this reaching the crown chakra, is to take away that is that which binds you, which holds you down, or which is coming against you. When and in most realities, the worst enemy is ourselves, and so it's a type of way of fixing ourselves and being that doctor, and not seeking outside for this help and this mental understanding and or wisdom. The many different stories so far we've come up to is to go in and include this female energy in your life, and that's really honoring mother and father. If you've never heard that before, that's the first commandment. And there's a way of going about doing that, and you hear about that in both first and second uh, testaments, or old and new and old testaments. But anyways, you guys, I'm sorry I didn't go into reading in the Bible, because I would just tell you that these were all the same things. We found that that the Kundalini and all that is constantly going to be mentioned in this idea of going through the number system at 9 is it's just the most beautiful thing. Like Abraham, it says the Lord appeared to Abram, and said, "Unto thy seed will I give this land." The seed, the seed is what's sown. Once you learn how to read this Bible correctly, and you see through it and learn that planting that seed is the child, planting that sod, and the child and you and all the rest of you for eternity and eternity after has been given both sides of the brain to be one. You have been given them. That's God's promise. It doesn't exist outside of you. The promised land and the national world of this hell on earth means absolutely nothing. It's just a folly, just some fun that a bunch of human beings are trapped in, and that so what? You know, we're in it with them, but we don't have to. We don't have to have the same mind. Okay, so learn how to join them together. Remember, two half brains don't make a whole brain. You want to put those two makes one. Is that how it works? Two half brains don't make a whole. Two half brains don't make a whole. I wonder if that's some kind of Confucius thing, because what they're talking about is a double-minded person. Because what you want to do to honor mother and father is to connect those two half brains together, the two halves of our brain, make them into one. That's how you do it. I love y'all. I really do. And thank you very much for tuning